That's our giant box of candy. They're coming for it. There they are. 2 of them. Dead center. There they are, dead center. They're gonna come out from here. They're coming for the candy. It is almost too dark to see. Right there. They're tree knocking again. There's another one behind them. I can hear it. They've got 2 looking out up there, and they've got 1 coming down the hill to get the candy. It's just inside the forest. It's just too dark to see. There's something in the trees. Oh my God, it's in the trees. Get my 6. Keep your eyes on the horizon. And everywhere else is potentially, we may or may not see him, her, it, or they. But first, we're going to do it right this time. We're going to measure the wind, if there is any, with our conductor's tape or our engineering tape. Okay, this way, if you see movement back there, there's engineering tape. Definitely engineering tape. Where, you say? Exactly where? Well, let me be more specific for you. Right there, okay? So if you think you see movement in the background and you want to attribute it to the wind or the breeze, you make sure this thing's moving right here, okay? Now we're going to place the bait and we're going to give a tree knock with our knocking stick. This is all part of our potential Bigfoot Sasquatch field research kit, okay? Shout out to Chad Johns in Aurora, Ohio, who purchases today on our Etsy store. This very kit, which is being used in the production of today's video, will be boxed up and mailed to you, Chad Johns. Here's how you'll know. Some people would call that ant damage. I would call that uniqueness. Now, potentially 2 of them, at least 2, came out of here and grabbed our Snickers bars the other day. If they like Snickers bars, they're going to love this. I mean, look at this. What candy-eating, upright walking bipedal creature would not love this if they love Snickers? So let's put it out and say, knock, knock, anybody home? And get to our story today. All right, Chad Johns, your unofficial, official, potential Bigfoot Sasquatch tree knock stick has been broken in. And don't worry, in case you forget how to use the kit, all kits do include copywritten material of the instructions. Okay, now. You know, I knocked 3 times. I usually just knock once. Those last 2 were just for show. And it sounded as if we got a reply from that direction. We have an audience, so let's get to it. All right, so it's been almost 2 weeks since I read any correspondence to you. That's what we're going to do today. And I think you'll enjoy this. I enjoyed it. We've been getting a lot of activity up here lately. So this came in the mail, very neatly typed, so I didn't have to, you know, try to decipher somebody's unique handwriting. That's how I'll say it. I don't want to say that some of the folks who send the handwritten letters aren't neat. I just want to say that they're unique in their handwriting. It takes me a little bit longer, and I'm trying not to block your view. This is coffee. I just had a nap. Just woke up. Not long ago, so who knows, maybe this will lure him, her, it, or they in as well. Another tree knock. All right, so as my beautiful bride dearly, aka Giggly Girl, would say, with no further ado, I'm going to get right to it. Dear Kevin, I can't remember when or why I started watching your channel. I know I've been a regular viewer for about 3 years now. So I must have started watching before all of this Bigfoot Sasquatch stuff, as you call it, started. I remember why I kept watching though. Your videos made me homesick. I have lived my whole life in Morgantown, West Virginia. I know our states border each other, but it's quite a drive from where I live down to your neck of the woods. I know this well because my parents were both from the southwestern part of Virginia, a town named Christiansburg, which is not too far from Blacksburg, home of those dreaded Virginia Tech Hokies. As you might imagine, being a West Virginia mountaineer, I hate the Hokies as much, if not more, than you probably do, since you live in Charlottesville or thereabouts. However, don't think for a minute that I'm any fan of the UVA Cavaliers, because I'm not. Sound like a knock and a howl. Keep watching. I'm hearing footsteps already. Okay. Sports talk aside, and honestly, I don't really care about any of it, but I know you like your UVA hats. Man, there's a lot of activity going on around here. Keep your eyes peeled. If you missed that video from yesterday, you have got to watch it. We clearly saw two bipedal uprighting somethings coming through here. Watch for them again. It's almost dark, not quite, but this is the time of day. I mentioned waking up from a nap just now. That would have been the fourth time in probably the last 2 weeks I've seen these things. This time of day. There's a reason I've waited until this time of day to make these videos as of late. All right. Like your UVA hats, blah, blah, blah. Watching your videos, especially the ones that have you and your wife and your son in them on your homestead, brings back so many memories from the summers I would spend with my grandparents down in Christiansburg. The videos you guys have made of fishing on the local rivers in your area reminds me of all the times my grandfather would drive us over to the New River on the southern border of West Virginia to go fishing. Those years, some 50 years past now, were a magical time in my life. I'll admit that once you started this Bigfoot Sasquatch stuff, originally I unsubscribed from your channel. I'm sorry to say, but I also left a comment on the last video I watched telling you that I was unsubscribing. I know that you banned me because when I returned to your channel only a few months later, it was winter and I was up to my ass in snow. I was up to my backside in snow and I couldn't stay away from the views of those much milder winters in Virginia that I could see daily on your channel. I tried to comment and I could not. I don't blame you for banning me. I was negative. I could have unsubscribed and moved on, but I felt that I had to get a dig in at you. It was immature and I'm sorry. Apology accepted. I can't imagine how many vertically challenged individuals who live under bridges you have to deal with, and it wasn't right for me to have been one of them. If you ever feel like unbanning me, my YouTube user ID is FatJack55. I promise I won't do it again. Well, thank you, FatJack55. Now, there wasn't a whole lot of noise out here to begin with, but it has just gotten exceptionally, eerily quiet right here. And there sounded like another knock from a different direction the others have come from. They might be coming in to get this Russell Stover's. It's a giant box of candy. You saw it. It's so big that even though it's at a considerable distance from us, it's still quite sizable. Okay, anyway. Now, make sure not to block your view. Yeah, watch and see if it moves. I'm intentionally not trying to draw this out, and this isn't a very long note. I'm probably halfway through it. It's just my spidey senses are starting to tingle right now. Now, with sports talk and past grievances aside, it's time for me to get to my point. Like you, I've always had an issue with that, but alas, we are two salty old souls adrift in this great vast universe who were meant to be connected, potentially he. I had completely forgotten about all the stories that my grandfather used to tell my sister and me when we'd go camping at night, either on our grandparents' farm or on the banks of the New River. It was only during this past Thanksgiving, when I was talking to my sister on the phone, GD COVID, in parentheses, and I caught that bad word in time and hyphenated it, that I was reminded because she reminded me. Sadly, once I'd reached my teens, I no longer wanted to go to my grandparents' place down in Christiansburg for the summers. I had friends. I had a girlfriend, who, by the way, is now my wife. And I was playing sports. The last thing I wanted to do was hang out with an old couple who had funny accents, listen to me, a dumb hillbilly, as I know you know we're known outside of West Virginia, calling the kettle black, and FYI, well, I know that to be the case, who sat on their porch talking about how dang hot it was most of the summer and listening to what I thought was a half-crazy old man telling stories about things that do not exist most evenings. The summer of my senior year of high school, my sister, 2 years younger than me, went and spent the summer alone with my grandparents. Our parents had recently gotten divorced, a rare occurrence in my youth, but an event my generation, the baby boomers, would make quite popular, and I guilt-shamed my mother into allowing me to stay in Morgantown. She worked almost all the time, so I got to spend all my time with my girlfriend. We ended up getting in trouble, if you know what I mean, and it sped up the I do's at the altar, but I don't regret any of it. And I'm proud to say that she and I are still together, having never participated in the divorce game, and we have 3 kids, all of which are about your age. My little sister came back with quite the tale at the end of that summer. Allegedly, she and our grandfather, while out camping early in the summer, were visited by someone or something that would walk circles around their tent at night. At first, they thought it was a deer or a bear passing through. However, the first night it happened for the entire night. Whatever was walking around the tent did not leave until just before dawn. Our grandfather had fallen asleep, convinced that what they were hearing was merely an animal. But my sister, she told me, was too scared to sleep. I know Morgantown is not a big city as far as big cities go, but we did live in the middle of town and we didn't have deer walking around in our yard at night. I bet that's changed since then, since these white-tailed deer pretty much overtaken everywhere they exist on the East Coast. But anyway, a week later, my sister and grandfather went camping again. They were camping on our grandparents' property, so the likelihood of what they'd heard being a trespasser was small. You know, living in Virginia yourself, the people there do not trespass because they know they are more likely to get shot for doing so than not, and that was even more true back in those days. Anyway, my sister and grandfather tried an experiment. They left a half dozen apples out about 20 yards from their tent, as well as a candy bar. Yes, a candy bar. And I actually got this story a couple days ago, and I was going to read it yesterday, and that's why I put the candy bars out here, and I was going to reference this story, but then all that crazy stuff started happening. So it kind of put this story off by a day. That's what gave me the idea of the candy bars we put out, okay? My little sister thought the idea of leaving a candy bar out was as crazy as you probably do reading this. We don't think it's so crazy anymore. But my grandfather's point was that any animal could eat the apples without leaving any sort of trace of what specifically ate the apples. But if anything ate the candy bar, you would clearly be able to tell it was an animal by the way it would have to maul the wrapper to get to the food inside. Most animals, my grandfather said, wouldn't even touch a candy bar. The next morning, my sister and grandfather found no apples and only the wrapper from the candy bar. And it had not been mauled and gnawed on as if from an animal, like a bear or a raccoon. It had been opened neatly by someone or something which obviously had opposable thumbs. When my sister and grandfather told me of this tale, when I went down to Christiansburg with my mother to pick my sister up at the end of that summer, I thought it was all just a bunch of bull they'd made up in order to make me feel guilty for not having gone down and spent the summer on my grandparents' farm. I did not believe it for a minute, and I let them know about it. They didn't seem to care that I didn't believe. They said it would always be something special between the two of them. When they made not a single effort to try to convince me to believe, I thought there might actually be some truth to it. I would go on to college after high school. Go Mountaineers. His words, not mine. I would say go Cavaliers. And my grandfather passed away during my senior year. My grandmother passed away only 6 months later. We believe she died of a broken heart, as she and my grandfather had been together since childhood. I attended my grandfather's funeral. You can clearly hear those footsteps. Something is close, but I can't see it. You know, a lot of folks who watch this channel and comment mention cloaking. Keep that in mind and keep watching. Okay, I attended my grandfather's funeral. It was actually held at his farm. He'd wanted to be buried at the top of a hill overlooking the old farmhouse. Ironically, it was one of the locations where we'd often camp when I spent the summers there, and it was the same location where he and my little sister had claimed to have had their experience with what I jokingly call the candy bar eating Bigfoot, which I'm sure you'd call the candy bar eating Bigfoot Sasquatch. And yes, that's what I'd call it, or him, or her, or in yesterday's case, them. There was not a whole lot of people in attendance for my grandfather's funeral. He was a shy, private man. He didn't have many friends, but the ones he had were close. Ironically, I think that's another reason I found myself drawn to your YouTube channel. You kind of remind me of him. After the funeral, a few people walked over and put flowers beside the headstone of my grandfather's grave. My little sister placed a candy bar on top of it. Though the jury of my mind was still out on the validity of their story from years before, I found her gesture sweet and sincere, and it brought me to tears. That evening, my little sister and I sat on the old porch swing on the front porch of the old farmhouse. We talked well into the night, mostly reminiscing about all the summers we'd spent on the farm. We went to bed just before midnight. Sometime in the middle of the night, I was awakened by what sounded like a loud stomp on the front porch. The room my sister and I were sleeping in was the master bedroom of the house, which was on the first floor. All right, my heart just skipped a beat. I just got a notification that somebody commented on a YouTube video, and I saw the movement out of the corner of my eye, and I thought it was him, her, it, or they, but no, it just said somebody told me I suck. Huh, okay. All right. Okay, sometime in the middle of the night, I was awakened by what sounded like a loud stomp on the front porch. The room we were sleeping in was in the master bedroom, first floor of the house. The window looked out over the porch. After hearing the stomp, I raised my head to look out the window, but it was pitch black dark outside. There was no moon. Listen with earbuds or headphones. There is something walking within feet of me, but I cannot see it. Let me tell you what, guys, I'm almost done. Be patient. I know we've gone on for a while here, but when I'm done with this, I think I'm going to be putting my coat back on, hiding behind the woodpile again, and sitting out here until it's too dark for me to see. if I capture anything, I'm not going to make you wait. I'm going to put it at the very beginning of this video, okay? Which would mean you've already seen it by this time. Gosh, this is like trying to predict the future. Okay, anyway, it's like time travel. Yeah, that's why they call me Crazy Lake. All right. After hearing the stomp, I raised my head to look out the window. But it was pitch black dark outside, no moon. So I lay my head back on my pillow and went back to sleep as quickly as I'd awakened. The next morning, I rose early. I wanted to take advantage of seeing the sunrise over my grandparents' farm, so I made my way out to the front porch, and I sat on the old porch swing. When I rested my hands beside me on the swing, I felt something with the fingertips of my left hand. Okay, I'm hearing whistles that don't sound like birds. Tree knocks. Keep watching. When I rested my hands beside me on the swing, I felt something with the fingertips of my left hand. I instinctively wrapped my fingers around what was there, and I raised it to my face. It was a candy bar wrapper. To this day, I have no idea how the candy bar wrapper got on the swing. I never asked my sister about it, for you see, part of me believed the story she and our grandfather had told me. I erred to the side of caution, and I viewed the wrapper as having been left as a message for my sister, so I left it on the swing. I watched shortly after my sister woke that morning as she, too, made her way to the porch swing. I peered through the bedroom window, making sure to do so from the opposite side of the room as the window so that my sister would not see me, and I saw that she took up the wrapper, and when she did, she cried. At long last, I had my answer as far as whether or not their story had been true. I also believe that I've had confirmation about their story be true. Did I see the Bigfoot Sasquatch myself? No. Then what's the confirmation? My sister never mentioned the wrapper that she found on the porch swing to me, and to this day, I've never asked her about it. As they say, some things are better left unsaid, and in this case, I believe that what is being left unsaid is the truth. Kevin, thank you so much for the time you put into making your videos. The memories some of them have brought back to me are worth a priceless fortune. I would imagine there are better things you could be doing with your time. Well, according to the vertically challenged individuals who live under bridges, yes, there is. But I, for one, appreciate every minute that you put into your videos. Though you've banned me, I'll be a viewer for life. Kindest regards, J.S., Morgantown, West Virginia. So guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the PBS. The potential Bigfoot Sasquatch. They're close. Show. So, again, if we get anything out of this, you've already seen it. So as you go and enjoy the rest of your evening, I'm going to go hide in the wood pile. But I'll obviously be in need of the camera.